Hello and welcome to this week's live stream. My name is Will Barron. I'm the founder over at salesman.org, and every Friday you're going to see me answering your questions. What date is it today? It is the 19th of March. It is 6:15 my time, so we'll go for about 45 minutes or so. We'll go to 7 p.m. GMT. So if you've got a question and you want me to answer it, drop it in the comments, in the chat below the window that you're watching this video on, and we'll dive right into it. This week's been a good week. We got tons of content recorded. If I sound a little bit hoarse, it's because I've recorded like 4 podcasts today. All of them have been pretty good, actually. Sometimes we get a few bum podcasts that we don't publish, and we apologize, and they just don't go out. But all of them have been pretty good today. So that's exciting stuff. Hopefully, you've just seen, I'll have to review it because obviously I can't watch the stream live as I'm streaming to you. You've just seen a video intro. We're working on the camera angles. We're working on all the production. Hopefully, we're starting to get there with some of this because I'm really enjoying these live chats, and hopefully you are doing it as well. They're doing quite good numbers on both the live side of things, but they're actually doing really well in our podcast feed. I don't know what it is. I don't know why people are enjoying it, but you guys seem to be enjoying it, Sales Nation. So with that, without further ado, let's jump into some of your questions. Again, I do this live chat every week. If you enjoy the content, make sure to click subscribe, leave a comment below, give it a thumbs up, a like, or whatever is on the platform that you consume this content on. And let's jump into it. So the first question we have come in here is from Hoogie, who says or asks, I've just started in an account manager role. I've only ever done net new business sales in the past. Any tips on working on what accounts I should be spending the most time with? So a new account manager, what account should I be spending time with? So if we pull it over to the whiteboard here, the best way to answer this is, it's pretty simple, right? If we draw this out, we're going to have, we can call it relationships, or to put it more bluntly, I guess, we can have influence on one axis, and then on the next axis we'll have revenue, or we'll put potential. Because I assume as an account manager you're going into larger accounts as opposed to smaller ones. So what you're going to find is there's going to be accounts where you've got great relationships with, but there's very little potential new revenue. Now, these could be over here. These could be great accounts for you. They could drive tons of revenue every year. And as an account manager, these could do 50, 60, 70% of your sales target by just looking after these accounts. But if you want to grow your business, what we want is the holy grail, right? So we want lots of or strong relationships, strong influence. And we also want lots of potential, which are going to be up here. And there's probably some way to describe this graph chart, right? A quadrant graph, as you'll see in a second, something like that. These are the holy grails. These are what we're looking after. What most people find, though, in account management roles, and my last medical device sales role was somewhat of an account manager role because we wrapped up so much of the market in the geographical area that I work in over in Yorkshire. You'll find that you'll have a lot of decent relationships, but there's lots of potential for revenue to be grown. So if we split this into quadrants, these are the holy grail accounts, and these are the ones kind of stemming these two sides of the quadrant here. These are the ones that are going to be the most profitable. You're going to have decent relationships within the account, so you're going to be able to get deals done. And it's this cliche of sales of landing and expanding. This is what you want to aim for. It's very difficult to close massive, huge deals without having a foot in the door and without kind of getting some business done first. So again, in medical device sales, it could be the fact that you sell some endoscopes. Now you're going to sell a camera system, then you can sell an operating theatre on the back of it. This episode, I'll tee it up here, is brought to you from the salesman.org HubSpot studios, right? With HubSpot, when I was doing the initial few deals with them, they were smaller deals. Then we went and did the live events together, and now they've done this larger multi-year partnership, sponsorship, sponsoring the studio space and all that good stuff as well. So you want to land and expand. And the ones you want to avoid essentially are accounts where they might be on your territory. Your sales manager might be telling you to go after them. But if you have no relationship and you've got no revenue, you're kind of up here. These are the ones you want to avoid as an account manager. Now, if you're going after net new business, you might have to go after some of these. But as an account manager, you want to avoid, I've not had it on at all. I've not had the, you want to avoid these where we've got low relationships and low revenue potential. So hopefully that helps. If you want to drill down into that any further, Hoogie, do let me know. Just comment below, and I'll follow up with the next comment. San asks, what's the most stressful selling moment you have ever had? All right, so imagine this. Operating room, the biggest, literally is a big chap, but one of the most important surgeons in medical device sales, right? One of the most important surgeons in the UK for our organization. We do tons of training with him. We send him abroad and take surgeons, juniors, and consultants off with him, and he teaches them, and so it's a nice treat, and that wins us tons of business. Well, he works in our local hospital to me here in Leeds. I won't, just in case of any medical device sales reps listening, I won't name the hospital or the individual, because you'll probably know who he is. He's a colorectal surgeon. And you walk into the hospital, and there's the brand that I used to work for. Their logo is in all of the cameras. The whole operating room is branded as this company, right? It's everywhere. I won't name the company because you'll understand why as I get into this tale, right? Walk in, I've got me clogs on, I've got me scrubs on, just chilling. I used to go there every Friday afternoon, have a nice chill with everyone, and there's a patient on the table. They're using endoscopy surgery, so keyhole surgery. They're literally, my equipment that I was selling is inside the patient, camera on the end of a stick, so that the the surgeon, can see what's going on inside the patient, so they don't have to do a big, massive cut. They can make small incisions and do the same procedure. It's all going swimmingly. It's all exciting. What happens? The frigging power goes off. Everything just goes pitch black. Like, legitimately now. I would not be able to overemphasize this. The only thing that's still running is the anaesthetist's workstation desk thing. It's probably got a name, but essentially that's pumping air in and out of the patient's lungs to keep them alive at this moment in time, because they're just completely sedated, completely under general anaesthetic. That's the only thing that's left on. Now, the patient's abdomen gets inflated as you're doing these procedures so that there's more space so you can see what's going on. That's our equipment that does that as well. That has turned off. So the patient's stomach is going, almost making a farting noise, coming down. The surgeon's looking at me. The registrars, the junior surgeons are looking at me. The nursing staff's looking at me because I've got this big sodding badge on my chest, right, with the brand logo on it. And I'm going, nothing to do with me, this, mate. In my head. Now, in reality, I'm looking at my phone. Okay, I'll go and make a few calls. And I was absolutely crapping myself. Went out of the operating room, and then the surgeon followed me out, and I think he could see that I was panicked. He is a legend. He's the man kind of thing. So he gets on his phone. He's calling internally within the hospital to see if there's any breakers or anything. I'm calling the person who sells the operating rooms. They're literally the dude who sold the operating room that we're in. And I'm chasing him up, and he's going, "Hey, it's nothing to do with us. It must be a circuit break outside of the complex of theatre, the complex of theatre rooms." And I can't tell that to the surgeon. Hey, it's nothing to do with us. Our brand is all over the place, right? Anyway, this surgeon comes back, and there's literally this young lad. Maybe he's an intern or he's an apprentice. I don't know what it is, but you just see him sprinting down the corridor about 15 seconds later. Absolutely, he's cacking his pants more than I am. And there's just a circuit breaker that's gone off. It's a dead old hospital, right? And someone's tripped the circuit breaker outside of the main theatre unit itself, just outside the main doors. And that flips and everything comes back on. And I'm like, right, do I now stay and see to make sure everyone's okay and everyone's calm and kind of promote the fact that it wasn't our fault that all this has happened? Or do I just get out with it and get home before it happens again, if it's going to continuously happen over and over? If there's a piece of equipment in there, it could be anything. It could be our equipment. It could just be the printer or whatever else is in the operating room. Do I go back and do I just try and escape and avoid being in this situation again? Anyway, I stayed and I just stood there in silence, hoping that the procedure would go well. And it wrapped up, and that was that. And I don't think they ever had this issue ever again. But yeah. To answer your question, Sam, that was probably a long-winded answer, more than what you expected, but that was the most stressful selling moment I've ever had. I was absolutely cacking my pants. Okay, let's go back. We have young Elliot. So he's a fan of Smash Bros. By the sound of things. This is my little brother. Why is Toon Link the best character on Smash Bros? For anyone who's unfamiliar, this is a game that we play on Nintendo Switch, Nintendo consoles. And Toon Link isn't the best character, young Elliot. The evidence there is that you lose every time we play it. So that's unfortunate, mate, but I appreciate the question. Michael says, and so it begins. Hello, Michael. I hope you are doing well, mate. What else do we have? Okay, this is not what I would use the answer, but I will answer it, seeing as my little brother's watching. Neil asks, have you ever smoked weed before a sales meeting? How did that meeting go? No, I haven't. I've not smoked weed since being a kid, right? I definitely would not be doing it before important sales meetings. I don't even think I've ever had so I won't drink and drive. I won't even have one drink and then go and drive. So I've never even had a few pints before a sales meeting or anything important like that either. So yeah, sorry, Neil. That's I can't help you with that one. That would be an entertaining story if I did have it. Red Pig asks, is it always a bad idea to take a pay cut? I currently have a base of $110,000, but I hate my job. I could change industry into a space that I'd probably be more happy in, but I know I'd take a pay cut to get into it, at least until I get more experience. Love the channel. Thanks for any feedback. I will give you some feedback. Red Pig, that could be man, woman, trans, whatever. I'm gonna I don't know what pronouns we'll use for you. We'll just call you Pig. Let's see. So the way to think about this is you've got multiple buckets in your life, right? So let's say this is what we're alluding to here of your base salary. Let's say this is money or wealth or whatever, right? And this is you're saying you hate your job. This is I'm going to call it time left on the planet. Now, some of these buckets will renew themselves. You can always make more money, so you can filter more and more stuff in. So perhaps you buy a house, property, you start a business, whatever it is, and the money shrinks down to here. Well, you can always fill it back up over time, right? So you could take a pay cut now, and hopefully you'll be able to jump back to the salary that you're at in the not too distant future. And pretty seamless and simple. Maybe you can't jump back up to the money that you're bringing in right now, in which case you've got to think about whether you want to make these sacrifices to live a perhaps happier, better life. Now, the only bucket that we all have, right, that you can't refill, or not right now anyway, maybe this will happen in the next few hundred years, but right now is the time that you've got left on the planet. This bucket starts full and it has a hole in and is constantly leaking. Now, depends how you want to look at things. I like to do this exercise. I don't know where it came from. Maybe I was talking about this on one of the podcasts I recorded yesterday. Maybe this comes from a Tony Robbins book. I'm not sure. But I like this idea of the Christmas Carol, the film. It's called the Christmas Carol Experiment. So if you stop for the moment right now and you imagine the ghost of selling past or whatever comes along, and he or she, this ghost comes along and says, hey, I'm going to take you 5 years into the future, 20 years into the future, and then to your final few moments left alive, right? This is getting pretty deep at the beginning of this live chat. But I've started the tale, so we'll go down it. So we're going to go 5 years, 10 years. We'll go 1 year. We're going to go 1 year, 10 years, and then kind of end of life. Now, what this ghost of selling past or future or present or whatever is going to do is they're going to show you exactly what's going to happen in 1 year if you carry on doing the things that you're doing right now. 10 years and then end of life. Now, what most people find when they do this exercise and just sit back and chill and sit in a chair and ponder on this for 10 minutes, most people find, well, in a year, maybe things are fine. I'm plodding along. I've not perhaps hit the goals that I wanted to, or I have hit the goals that I wanted to, and everything's going to be okay. So I can put up with this sales job that I don't like for this little bit of time, and sod it, who cares? Now, when we get to 10 years and you're in a job that you don't like, most people, myself included, start going, hey, maybe 10 years from now, I'm not going to be in the place I want to be. Maybe this job is going to hold me back. Maybe I'm going to be in the same job, but miserable. Maybe this money bucket is going to be high, but my time left on the planet bucket is dropping, and the exchange of value going between these two is not going to be worth it. And then especially when we get to this end of life element here, where if you really, you're hopefully old as shit at this point, you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your life, are you really going to be happy in the fact that you wasted 20 years in a career that you really hated? Maybe you only spend 10 years in that career that you hate, and that gives you enough money, it tops you up all the way up here, so then you can semi-retire or do something like that. So you've got to work out the investments here. And remember, this is on the pathway of where we are right now. And so very often when I do this exercise, or people that I coach do this exercise, they go, okay, well, we need to start off on this divergent path in a different direction, so that 1, 10, and then end of life are what I actually want to achieve and what I want to be. So if you hate your job right now and there's value, I'm not saying just flippantly leave your job. Make sure you've got like an emergency fund, you've got cash, you can support your family, whatever it is. I'm not saying just quit your sales job. But if you're thinking about a shift of industry within the B2B sales space, just think about this as divergent paths. Are you going to be happier in end of life, 10 years and 1 year in that new role with a bit less cash? Or does the cash have so much value to you, and or perhaps allows you to retire early enough that sucking it up for a few years is going to be useful? So hopefully that helps. But yeah, these divergences. And you can have as many of these as you like. You probably do this exercise every 5, 10 years, whatever it is. And I find it really grounds me and helps me suss out whether I do want to be doing what I'm doing. And if I don't, and you're doing something that you don't want to do for long enough, then it's time for a change. Otherwise, you're going to end up at this location where you don't want to be, and it's going to suck. Right. What else do we have? Okay, Ken asks, curious which SaaS companies you might direct a hungry account executive to besides HubSpot. HubSpot are doing some, I can't talk about it too much. I don't know what I can talk about. They're doing some cool things over the next 12 months. HubSpot, I think that, if you are in Boston, if you're local to them, getting HubSpot or the Dublin office as well. So yeah, by default, HubSpot. And then you've got like Gong. You've got companies like, I interviewed a VP of sales over at Seismic today, a sales enablement company. They are doing, again, I can't really talk about it because I'm not sure what was on record and what wasn't. But if they do what the VP was sharing, they're going to do some really exciting things. And they seem like the market leader in that space. So Seismic, Gong, Chorus doing cool things. Basically, you want to be in, especially if you're looking at SaaS, if you're looking at the startup world. And now I'm talking about startups that have done hundreds of millions in venture capital. You've got the likes of Outreach as well. So I know a bunch of people over Outreach. I've worked with Outreach and some of the companies they've acquired in the past few years as well. So there's literally good people there, as well as it just being a good company to work for. But that's what I'd be looking for. I'd be looking for an organization that... switch back to this for the moment. I'll be looking for an organization that are easy to sell. They're the industry leaders. They're the people that you mentioned sales enablement, you mentioned CRM, you mentioned whatever it is. Obviously, I'm more familiar with sales technology companies than I am just SaaS in general. But whatever your hobby is as well, that hobbies or interests, that factors into it. When I talk about medical device sales and I bang on about imaging systems and all that kind of stuff, it's because I was genuinely fascinated in all of it. Hence, this ridiculous studio that I've built that has no place to be used by someone like me, because I'm interested in that kind of technology. So, hungry account executive can get into one of these fast-growing companies that aren't like a 3-man team, a couple of hundred people minimum, who have funding so that they're not just going to disappear in the next 12 months. And personally, in sales, there will be people who disprove this rule. I would focus on a company that has the opportunity to earn a ton of money, as opposed to a SaaS startup organization that is going to give you stock or shares or something like that. By the time salespeople are getting stocks and shares, and you've got to be in the company for 5 years, and then you can't sell them for 27 years, they become less valuable from in my perspective. So you want cash, you want fast growth, and you want an organization that is the number one in its space, because it becomes so much easier. Everyone's comparing their products versus yours, and that's the situation you want to be in. It makes sales lots easier. What else do we have? Arthur says hello. Hello, Arthur. Kevin asks, I'm new to selling. I'm requesting structural steel detailing from my clients. I want to learn structure or discipline in order to make sales or improve my sales call skills. So you're asking a couple of questions there, Kevin. Discipline in general, and this is something that I talk about regularly on the show. Discipline in general, I don't know how I'm going to diagram this out, but is more important than, if you have discipline, is more important than motivation. A lot of salespeople get stuck on this idea of, I'm not motivated, or I'm bored with this, or my customers have been annoying today, they've really took the wind out of me. You're right, in discipline, it lets you ignore all of that. And from my perspective, a lot of discipline comes from, multiple people call it multiple different things, but it's basically personal accountability. When you turn around and say, hey, I'm going to be responsible for the amount of leads you generate, which is an obvious one. I'm going to be responsible for walking the dog in the morning, even if my missus says she's going to do it and then she starts faffing around and then it just becomes a mess and I'm stressed about the dog. Just take accountability for it. Jocko Willink has got a book called Extreme Ownership. The book's so-so, but the idea, the concept is really valuable of just be extreme with this and own everything. Every decision, what we were talking about before, all these divergent points. If you own your discipline, if you own your time, if you own your decisions and you don't make excuses, you don't faff around, you take action, then you get to choose which one of these you end up on. When you push responsibility to other people, when you say, I can't do this because, or this person is a gatekeeper, or this and that, then you're allowing other people to direct you down one of these pathways. And if you do that, people, of course, are going to direct you down the pathway that's going to make them money, that's not designed to make you money. And this is what most jobs, other than sales, are doing. If you work in HR, hopefully you love your job because you're just making the shareholders, if it's a public company or if it's a private company, you're making the people who own the company, who have those managerial shares, those director shares, you're making them money. In sales, it's different because, of course, our revenue is tied to our commissions, hopefully. But structure, look up some of the books on MEDDIC. So MEDDIC is an acronym of a sales process. I think, please forgive me, I'm sure the guy's name is Andy White. White, not spelled how you'd usually spell it. I will link to this in the show notes of this live chat or at salesman.org. His book is great. I got a lot of value out of that. I think it's MEDDIC with 2 C's is how it's spelled. You can find it on Amazon. That'll give you the structure for selling, how to qualify buyers, how to know what to ask buyers. A lot of the sales process can be drilled down into MEDDIC and that framework, which I will do a video on, if you like, on the YouTube channel. It's a good framework, and a lot of our content is over at salesman.org. Our training program is based on the same or similar kind of framework as well. So hopefully that helps. What else do we have? John Jones asks, hopefully, or the opposite of hopefully, I'm assuming this is not John Jones, UFC beast athlete. John Jones asks, if it is, comment below. We've finally a trade show coming up. Good luck with that. I assume you're not in the UK because we're all massively locked down at the moment still. Can't even go to the pub. It's going to be a big one for us, and hopefully it will get us back on track with our 2021 quota. Hopefully it will. What is the best event swag you've ever seen given out? Best event swag. So I don't really go to events other than what I talked about before or alluded to before with this HubSpot live sales conference tour that we did where we did loads of interviews. What swag did I get there? If you give me a cool branded hoodie or something like that at an event like this, at like a sales event or whatever, something that I would be going to, I'll probably wear it, especially if it's a cool brand. If it's like Gong.io is a cool brand. HubSpot is a cool brand. Who else in the sales space? Salesforce is a cool brand. I don't know. Leave a comment below. What you think of the coolest brands in the sales, CRM, sales enablement space. But yeah, if you give me a cool hoodie or something like that, I would probably wear it on the airplane home. I might not stick it on under my suit at the event itself. But yeah, I'd probably walk the dog in it, wash the car in it, that kind of thing. And so there's value in just seeing that logo over and over and over for sure. But if you're giving out pens, if you're giving out anything cheesy, bottle openers, I don't know, something like that. I think if you're trying to win business on the back of swag, you're probably doing it wrong. Maybe that's the fairest way to go about it. I would want some kind of content on USB stick that I can't get anywhere else. Some kind of report that has been put together purely for the conference itself that offers me insights that I can't get anywhere else. and I want it for free. I don't want to have to give you my phone number. I don't want to have to faff around. I want there to be just a big pile of USB sticks, and I just go and pick one up, and it's got this unique data on it. And I want, maybe you could do something cool like, I don't know how you do this. You could figure this out, I'm sure. You could have the report only available on the USB stick after so many days, or it's only even better. You do like a Mission Impossible thing, right? You've got this content report, video, webinar, training, whatever it is, and it self-destructs on this USB stick. This USB stick will delete itself after so many hours, so people have to watch it the day after the conference. Everyone will be talking about that. That would be cool. Theme the webinar, the training, the white paper, whatever it is, in a Mission Impossible style, and have a countdown. So when I don't know practically how you do this, but I would pick one of them up and I would talk about it. And that's just it. You get that shared on social media. You'd have this residual effect of, did you get this? Did you remember this? Did you watch this? And you can only do it once. Because if you try and do it the next year, if someone else copies it, it'll be clear that they've got it from you and they ripped you off. And you now inadvertently ripped me off if you can do that. So there you go. There's that. That is the best swag that I've never got from an event that I would like to get from an event. Let's see. How are we doing? We are still live. That is good. Things haven't exploded quite yet. So you guys would not believe how much faffing it took me to get that intro video rocking and rolling, a bit of an advertisement for salesman.org. I want to be able to do more videos, show my screen, browse, open emails, even perhaps write like some sales copy or something live if you've got questions on that front. I sell to X, my product is Y, the buyer's main issues or the insights that I can share are 1, 2, 3, then maybe we could spend some time writing some emails and even testing them or whatever it is. We could do that live as well. What else do we have? Lucy asks, would you ever create non-sales content on YouTube? I enjoy these live chats. I enjoy the fact that you enjoy these live chats, Lucy. I enjoy these live chats more than anything else you put out because you're just yourself and you're chilling. Maybe some gaming content. Yeah, so Elliot, who's in, he's probably left now, but Elliot, who's in here before, maybe we could just play some online Smash Bros or something like that. I'd love to do gaming content. I'd love to, the problem with gaming is, I would be monetizing it through here, but I discourage people from doing it unless it's like use it to wind down and relax and it's your kind of like me time. There's too many people like addicted to just wasting time on games and it messes up your games are addictive. They're literally designed to mess up your brain, your dopamine and your reward pathways. And so it can make you lazy because, I guess as we can diagram out a little bit, if you've got your brain right, we have these reward pathways in our brains. And I'll go back to your question in a second, Lucy, but this might be valuable for people. And what your brain wants to do is it finds a challenge, and then you solve the challenge and you get a reward. And this is what most computer games are. This is what all computer games are. This is what most sports are. It's one of the reasons why loads of people start playing golf, football, whatever it is, and they'll play for 6 months, a year. They'll get through the initial few challenges. They'll get through them quick. So this feedback loop is fast. You get loads of dopamine in your brain and you're happy, you're excited, and you're motivated. Now, of course, things start to slow down then. So you might get around a golf course. I have no idea what I'm talking about with golf. It's not the best anecdote for me. But you get around the golf course and you're like 30 over par or whatever, or 300 over par. Then a week later, you're now 200. And then it's going to gradually get more and more difficult to knock those numbers down until you're playing at a professional level, if you ever do get to that kind of level. And this happens with computer games. Computer games start off easy. They're introducing new tasks, tools, ways to solve problems in the game, new weapons if it's a shooting game, new techniques, fighting styles, I don't know, whatever it is. And you have this feedback loop over and over and over. Now, computer games are designed to keep you addicted to them as long as possible because nowadays they want you to buy additional skins, loot boxes, whatever. They want to monetize you, not just after you've bought the console, the PC or whatever, the game. They want to monetize you long after the game as well, whether it's a subscription, all these kind of things, the gambling elements that seem to be all over games at the moment. And so they keep this feedback loop. But it's way faster than what our brains are designed to to go through. Our brains are designed to, you go out in the morning, you see the challenge is to shoot a deer, drag it home, cut it up, feed your kids, and then your brain should release dopamine at that point. So it's like 1-2 challenges a day versus what we have in modern life is it's a challenge to get to the car, then your phone's beeping you and you're going, oh, I've got an email. So you get a challenge of, oh, what's this email going to mean? You get a dopamine response from that. And this is happening. You're just getting dopamine all the time. And essentially it's a drug response. Your dopamine receptors and the amount of dopamine in your brain gets blunted. It just gets numb. So then you need bigger highs to get the same amount of hedonic, I think it's called hedonic adaptation. You need bigger highs to just get the same feeling and the same effects. So, long story short, I don't promote that people should play games. And I feel like if I was playing games on this channel, we'd probably have a good time, probably have a good laugh. You'd see me blowing people up or on Smash Bros, kicking Elliot, my brother's ass. But I feel like it might be promoting the wrong thing. I'd rather keep the channel to helping people become more successful, and successful people don't play a lot of computer games. I don't think Elon Musk, he might play an occasional game, right? I don't think he sat up all night doing benders on Red Bull playing computer games. So that's one of the reasons why, even though I would love to do some kind of gaming content and get this kind of conversation on Twitch and other places like that as well, it's one of the reasons why I haven't done that. So if you can think of any ideas of content that we could do that, even if it involved me playing a computer game and chatting with you guys and just chilling, maybe I wouldn't put it on the main channel. Maybe it would just be for like the super fans of salesman.org and the content we put out. Hopefully, like yourself, Lucy, we could potentially do that. Right, what else do we have? Ken Scott asks, outreach or SalesLoft? I think I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. Outreach is the market leaders via market cap, share of marketplace, that side of things. I've never used SalesLoft, so I can't comment too much on them. Guns ahead, though, and I've got to choose one of them. I would be aiming towards outreach, but I'm sure both of them are great companies. I do not know the truth to guide you there. Lorenzo asks, how do you find companies to sell for that pay you well? And then how do you sell yourself in order to become part of the sales team? Love from Italy. I appreciate the question, Lorenzo. Okay, so there's multiple questions here, multiple parts to it. How do you find companies to sell for that pay you well? So if you go to glassdoor.com, that will basically allows you to give a anonymous exit interview online to the company that you've worked for. And so there's tons of salespeople who give these exit interviews on there, and they will very literally tell you whether it's a good company or a bad company to work for. And of course, good or bad company in the sales space also means commission percentages, a percentage chance of hitting commission, OTs, all that kind of stuff as well. So Glassdoor will give you a lot of information, especially for larger organizations. If you want to get into enterprise sales, if you want to go and work for Microsoft or someone like that, and you're trying to suss out, well, where would I fit in within Microsoft itself? That is your best bet to go and suss out that. And then how do you sell yourself? Well, I guess the answer to part 2 is the same as additional to part 1 as well. Just get on LinkedIn, add some people in that organization, and they might not tell you how much they earn because for some reason, culturally, people don't like sharing that information. And we should share that information because the more that we talk and share how much we earn and we're open about it, the more, especially at the sales mid-management level before we get to leadership and that side of things, the more transparent we can be, the more likely we're going to be to go, hey, Bob is earning this, Francis is earning this, why aren't I earning at least something in the middle of that? So some people might be reluctant to share the exact cash that they do earn, but they'll probably give you a range, right? So ask people. Sell your way into the organization by asking people. Now, how do you sell yourself in order to become part of a sales team? You've got to be in the right place at the right time, and you do that as you would in sales. You've got to engage with the hiring managers, and it's not just hey, I'd love to join your team. Let me know if there's any open spaces. What can you send them, like you would send a prospect, some kind of insight, some kind of information that would brighten their day, that would make their job easier? What could you do for free right now? I'm sure you're very busy, Lorenzo, but what could you do free right now to help that individual out? Could you send them some leads? Could you do some prospecting? Could you find, again, like a report or white paper on sales management, sales leadership, some kind of insight that they would find useful? Because what you're doing here is demonstrating the fact that you know how to sell. And as soon as then there is a job interview opportunity that opens up, clearly you're going to get asked to go there, interview for it, and hopefully get the role. So I don't think you need to overcomplicate this. Narrow down the industry that you want to work in. Find the companies within that industry that you want to work in. Find the parts of, especially if it's the enterprise, find the subsegments of that organization, the sales for this product, sales for this service. Get to know the hiring managers by just adding value, commenting, doing some social selling, commenting on their posts on LinkedIn if they are posting on there. Send them some insights over email. And then it is a little bit of a waiting game. But yeah, be assertive and make these questions, ask these questions because you're demonstrating your sales ability. And if you're good at selling, which I'm sure you are, you'll get the nod and you'll get an invite. Right. Killer Content asks, what are the best industries for B2B sales at the moment? Where is the big dollars at? The big dollars is where the big dollars has been for like decades. It's probably large scale enterprise sales. I had a chap on the podcast today. He is involved with does work for Hitachi and does, I guess, large scale kind of data center work, stuff like that. So not necessarily selling number of seats for a software product, but hardware installations for large data centers. This dude drives a Ferrari. So he's doing more consulting than just out and out selling right now. But he owns a Ferrari. I believe he owns a nice Porsche. He seems like a very nice chap. He was telling me he's got a bungalow at the bottom of his garden with a full commercial gym in it. And he's a big fella as well, so I believe him. So yeah, anything where you want to be in a business where there's lots of money being spent, and you want to be in a business where it's difficult. Maybe you want to be in a business where describing value is difficult. And what I mean by that is it takes expertise to describe the value. So you can't be replaced by bot automation, and you can't be replaced by marketing literature or online content. That's where I'd be heading. But yeah, it's the enterprise. You need to be selling large deals that have lots of value to a large company at scale. And what I mean by scale is there's a lot of revenue within deals. So you might be doing one deal every 2 years, but that's where you're going to be doing most commissions, because everyone's commissions, right? People's commissions, it's typically just a percentage of revenue. So you want to drive as much revenue as possible, and you're going to do that in the enterprise. So hopefully that helps. What do we have next? Tra-la-la-la-la-la. Pella asks, any chance can you give us a studio tour? Yes, but when I move out of here, most probably. What do we have? Literally, right, the studio looks pretty good, right? So we've got this camera, kind of all panning, looking all pretty and beautiful. We've got the wide shot with the HubSpot logo. We go back and forth with all the different, and it seems quite seamless. But if you looked at this studio from any other direction other than straight on or where the camera's looking, it's a complete mess. You probably even can't see the table. I've got stuff all over here, all these bolts and screws. Literally, what do we have on the floor next to us? We have a bunch of rack equipment, random cables, right? So I need to have a massive clear out. And once I've had that clear out, we might be moving premises. That's another conversation for another time as well. But at some point, definitely before we leave this space, I'll do a full in-depth studio tour, because I think it's valuable for you guys, Sales Nation, to understand. Maybe you don't want to go the full hog that we've gone with some of this equipment, but for and I know this sounds expensive, but for $3 grand, especially if you're doing tons of Zoom calls, if your job now is working from home, a one camera setup like this with a decent camera, a decent background, and the ability to switch like I'm doing here between a iPad, laptop, whatever, and you can doodle, you can mark up. This is just PowerPoint here, so we could have slides, content on there. You can go back and forth, you can annotate, you can explain things visually to your potential buyers in the virtual environment like this, and it looks pretty. That will win you business. You spend $2 or $3 grand on a setup that is kind of like a part of what we've got here, you were going to kill it versus the competitors because you look so much more professional. Now, of course, you've got to be able to sell and you've got to be able to create and pitch content as well. Of course, there's the skills there, but this stuff really matters. I've had sponsorships come in. We've had large deals done on the back of the fact that our content just looks better than anyone else's in the space. So I will do a studio tour. It'll probably be on the way out of this space into the new space. And hopefully there'll be insight and value in it because, as I said, some of this stuff is not too expensive. There's one thing in mind, but I don't know where I've put it. It's literally under the table. So this, for example, is a Blackmagic A10 Mini mixer. This is what I use to live stream, as we're doing right now. Literally, there's a button just to live stream. You can record what you're doing this, so you can record your meetings to a hard drive. So if the meeting goes tits up, if it does well, whatever, you've got that data there. You can switch different cameras. There's a bunch of stuff on here that you're probably never going to use if you're doing Zoom meetings, but I feel like there's real value for the studio tour because I'll be able to run through some of this stuff in context. If I just did a video on this, we'd just turn it into a hardware review channel. It'd be weird and no one would watch any videos. But there's value in some of this equipment for sales professionals, especially if you're no longer in the office. Okay. What time are we on? Friggin' hell. I'll go another 10, 15 minutes or so. I'll go a little bit over time here because I'm enjoying it. I love these chats. Right. Tony asks, what is more important to look for in a sales trainer? We're looking to hire some external help right now. Previous sales experience or the ability to teach? Previous sales experience or the ability to teach? If you'd asked me this question like 5 years ago, 6 years ago when I started the podcast and everything that we're doing over at salesman.org, see how I built tension there with the sip of the tea. If you'd asked me that question 5, 6 years ago, I would have said, hey, you want a sales trainer that has done what you're trying to do in the past 2 or 3 years. If they're 10 years ahead, then what they did is irrelevant to what you're doing right now, especially post-COVID in the virtual world that we're all living in. We've all just been accelerated. I'm using nonsense marketing language myself. Synergy. Accelerated digital transformation. But yeah, we've gone through this accelerated transformation phase, right? So what a sales trainer, what they personally had success with 5 years ago is now no longer relevant. It doesn't exist. If they had success cold emailing at scale, you can't do that anymore, or it's going to become more and more difficult to do that over time. Now, with that said, I would have said that would have been my answer 4, 5, 6 years ago. Now, though, having consumed a lot of sales training content, and try to learn more about sales and frameworks, the mindset side of things, whatever it is myself. The ability to teach is really important. There's nothing worse than watching a webinar or something, and maybe some of the information is useful, and there's some facts that you want to write down, but you come out of it going, hey, this woman didn't really know what they were talking about. And most of the time that occurs not because the individual doesn't know what they're talking about, not because they're BSing you, but it's because they don't know how to teach. And most sales trainers don't know how to teach. So for example, over at salesman.org, we've hired what's called a learning designer, someone who's literally their job, their career, their expertise, what they've gone to school for, what they've gone to university for, is to create content that sticks in your brain and helps you do a job better. So it's one thing for me to say, hey, you just need to do these 3 steps. You may do them, you may not. You may watch it. You've probably been there. You watch a YouTube video on sales and you go, okay, that sounds great. And then you never use it. What's the point? It's pointless. So we've hired a learning designer to help us take some of our content of, well, you need a intro and an outro. You need to use if we come on here now, we need to use a pyramid structure to outline the video. So you're going to use a kind of a brief heading here of the main points. Then we're going to go into points A, B, and C. And then we're going to break up A into 3 chunks, B into 3 chunks. And anyway, the learning element of this is really important. And if you're not seeing sales trainers use this kind of pyramid structure with their content, which is the most basic way to create content that sticks in people's brains, then you know that they're probably not going to stick. They're not going to be able to communicate effectively with you what they want to, and it's not going to stick in your brain. Same thing if there's a book and it's like the 17 ways to do X, Y, Z, well, your brain can only remember 3 to 7 ways of doing things, or 3 to 7 points. And so by point 12, you're going to have forgotten points 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so this ability to teach is becoming increasingly important. So I would look for I think the content, I'm obviously biased. I think the content over at salesman.org is great for sales training. It's not for everyone. If you are doing smaller deal sizes or B2C, for example, it's probably not right for you. If you're doing larger deal size B2B deals, it might be great for you and your team. But there's tons of great sales training companies. Rain Group, I think it's called Brooks Group or Brooks Training. There's tons. If you watch the podcast, we have sales trainers on and heads of organizations of these sales training companies on all the time, because there's tons of great sales training content out there. But I would look for high quality content that is taught well. To answer your question, you need both. Hopefully, that was a long-winded answer. Hopefully that is useful. How big is the impact of knowledge and distribution and contract law for a sales career? This is from the EEP 23. Right. I literally interviewed a lawyer. Maybe it was on Monday, or maybe it was last Friday. I'm losing track. We've recorded a ton of content the past couple of weeks because we schedule ahead out of time. I literally interviewed a lawyer on contract law and what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing with regards to contracts, because we're signing. Or in my experience, I've signed contracts on behalf of organizations I've worked for. But it's my frigging name on the contract. So we wanted to kind of put together what I would be liable for if the contract went tits up, what I wouldn't be liable for. And so a little bit of knowledge on some of this is important. So I learned, I've never done this before, if you're signing a contract on behalf of the company, even if there's not room on the contract, you should just write in the margin, whatever it is, sign your name and then put on behalf of XYZ organization. And that then essentially dissolves you personally. To the best of our knowledge, anyway, myself and the lawyer, the attorney, it dissolves you and your responsibility if the company fails and something goes wrong and there's lawsuits. You are not the company. You're saying that you're representing the company. So that was just one point that came out of this interview. It'll be live in a few weeks over at salesman.org. But yeah, if you're signing contracts, you should know about, on a basic level, you don't need to go to law school, but you should know a little bit about signing contracts. If you are involved in distribution of products, so in my medical device sales role, I wouldn't necessarily be involved in the distribution of the purchased products, but we'd have a team member who would deliver, set up, manage, disassemble, remove any demo products, because they were big camera stacks, right? Big, massive camera systems, maybe like 30, 40 kilos, something like that. You'd have to wheel them in on a trolley. So you need to understand the elements of distribution there, of what can be done, what can't be done, where products, services need to go in and out of organizations. So that's valuable. So yeah, it's just business acumen, right? If you are in a sales space and someone asks you, sales job, and someone asks you the same question more than 3 or 4 times, and it's about distribution, it's about the contracts, it's about something like that, you need to then go internally within the organization that you work for and suss out who can give you this answer or who can you refer the individual to. So a lot of the time, I thought this is the most interesting part of the conversation I had with the attorney. I was saying, well, look, I have a contract and the buyer says, hey, it's gone to legal. Well, we'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. So I'm going, why the heck does it take a couple of weeks for legal to look after this contract? Especially when the organization, the example that I used, they created the contract. I've just signed it and it's gone to legal before it's countersigned and returned to me and the deal's done and I get paid. And she made a really good point. And this is why your business acumen at a wider level is important. She said, well, it goes to legal and it's flagged as least important thing on the whole of the agenda for legal. So I'm like, well, surely it's quite important to get these deals done, products installed, services rocking and rolling, because a lot of these deals will add revenue to the company's bottom line. And she goes, no, what's important to the legal team is not getting sued. It's the fact that it's a legal team for a toy company and there's 15 of whatever Barbie dolls or whatever it is, action men are lit on fire, spontaneously combusted in the past 3 weeks. And so we need to deal with that. So understanding the wider business space, the people that you are dealing with and the people that your customers, the end users and your decision makers, the influencers within the account that they're dealing with, the best that you can. I'm not saying go and do a law degree, but understanding all of these stakeholders, both internally and externally, allows you to do a better job. So how big is the impact of knowledge on distribution and contract law for a sales career? If that's what you get involved with, if you have these queries come up more than a couple of times a year, it's important to kind of dig a bit deeper and learn about it. Makes you look smart as well, which is important for some customers. All right. Ken asks, I appreciate the questions. Ken Scott, I appreciate you, mate. Can you explain how you configure the iPad for live drawing, Mac or PC? How do you switch to show the iPad? So I'll cover this in depth in the studio tour. But basically, so you have this. This is an ATEM mini switcher. I think they're about 300 quid. I've got the big boy version here, which is about $1,000. It's just come out. And so everything goes into that. So you've got these HDMI ports at the back of it. This is more simple than what it seems, right? And so if I want to put camera 1 on, I press 1. If I want camera 2, I press 2. If I want camera 3, I press 3. If I want the iPad on its own, I can just press camera 4 and we can go to that. So there we go. Hi. We'll go back to camera 1. And there's a function called Super Source, which allows me to put multiple cameras on the screen at once. And that's what you're seeing there. So there's just a dongle coming out of the iPad. And this is just literally Microsoft PowerPoint that's on here. It's nothing special at all. There's no special apps on it. It just comes out of a dongle, a USB Type-C. This is an iPad Pro, which goes to a HDMI cable, which goes in the back of here. And this allows you to switch it across. Dead simple. And this, I guess this is the most important thing. This plugs into your computer, and your computer sees all of this as just one input, which is a webcam. So you can use this on Skype. You can use this on Zoom, whatever conferencing that you're doing. Your computer just thinks it's a webcam. So when you log into Skype or whatever and you choose what camera you want to look at, if you've got an internal one and an external one, it usually gives you options. It'll just say Blackmagic switcher, and then you get to choose that, and it'll do the hard work for you. And all this would have cost like 10 grand, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. This is only in the past 12 months that this has become viable. And I guess so many people are buying hardware for live streaming that the scaling, the cost of buying the products in the first place and manufacturing them obviously goes down with scale. So that's why they're so cheap and so readily available. So there you go. Ken, also drop me an email, mate, will@salesman.org, if there's anything specific I can help with regards to this kind of stuff, because I enjoy chatting about it. Matthew Lewis asks, do sales training strategies change for different personality traits? If you're looking at a sales strategy or framework such as MEDDIC, no, it doesn't. If you're looking at things like the Challenger sale, where Challenger has data, both data and a narrative to suggest that salespeople do better. Let me frame this right. There's multiple personality types within the Challenger model, right? For example, there's a relationship seller, and the relationship seller goes into an account, builds great relationships, and they go, oh, we'll give Will the business because we trust him, we know, like, and trust him, and we know that he's not going to screw us over and he's going to work hard. So that's the relationship seller. Well, Challenger found, and this is maybe it's like 10 years ago now, but I still think it's really relevant, that the most successful people, or the people who are most successful more often than not, are individuals they call challengers, who will go into an account and disrupt the status quo, who will go into an account and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. I do these deals all day, every day. I see the issues that you're having, and you can resolve them by doing 1, 2, 3, consulting with us, buying our product or service. Now, if you are not assertive, if you are a people pleaser, if you like to beat around the bush and you don't want to and you're scared of rejection, and some of this is a personality trait, some of it is learned behavior, then that model would not work for you. Maybe the model for you is the relationship sale, which might be more of an account manager role as opposed to hunting net new business role. So in answer to your question, sales training strategies could change for different personality types. But what we do over at salesman.org with our sales code assessment over there is from like 50 or 60 different personality traits, we've narrowed down the top 12 that most successful salespeople have like 9 or 10 of, and we teach you how to instill them, how to become more assertive and things like that, how to become less of a people pleaser. And so a lot of this are learned behaviors. You can change your level of assertiveness. You can become more optimistic, which is another trait over in the sales code assessment. And once you start to instill these, sales becomes naturally easier. You're not trying to find hacks or shortcuts or I don't like doing this, so I'm going to do this, but I know it's not less effective. When you change your underlying behavior, your programming just a little bit, you're going to find that you're going to have more success by default. So yeah, there might be different training methodologies, strategies for introverts versus extroverts, for example, but just becoming slightly more extroverted solves having to faff around with shortcuts, hacks, and and ways to go about sales that is going to be less productive no matter how you look at it. AJ says or asks, what are your thoughts on IT sales as a career and its scope? So its scope is essentially unlimited. It's a great place to be. Essentially I was in IT sales when I was in medical devices. It was a medical device product, but it was essentially information technology. It was camera systems. It was getting these cameras, images, pictures on a network off into patient notes. And I enjoyed it. There's massive scope there. Yeah. you need to ask a more specific question about a specific industry, company, or subsegment of kind of a product mix. But IT sales in general, of course, it's going to be great. It's the future. If you're selling something right now, I don't know, what's becoming less and less useful. If you're selling used cars and nobody's buying used cars, everyone's buying them on payment plans or PCPs or whatever it is, people want to rent. The market is moving towards renting a car that you don't own, that you have to faff with, you don't have to fix. Then obviously that's a bad place to be. IT, information technology, is the future of everything. So yeah, you want to be involved with AI, you want to be involved with services around data centers and collecting data. That's where you're going to have value in the IT space. Mackle asks, in general, I like the way you're framing this up to give me a softball question here that I can blag if I don't know the answer to. Are more salespeople finding video conference calls more effective than selling solely over the phone? I do not have data on this. I know we covered it on This Week in Sales, which I recorded yesterday, which you'll find on the YouTube channel and on the salesman.org podcast feed tomorrow. We covered some data that suggests that 50% of salespeople have lost a sale in the past 12 months because they've not been able to go and see customers in person. So there is definitely a sales being dropped on the back of not being able to go in person. But over the phone, I think the phone's great. The phone has its place. Let's go back to this. The phone has its place in a lot of sales processes. I don't want to be on webcam. I don't necessarily need to be able to communicate visually with people. If I want to ring up and if I want to speak to someone about a contract, I don't necessarily need to go through all the rigmarole of setting in appointments. I've got to be on the computer. I've got to make sure my microphone's working. And so video selling can be more effective. It's, as we said here, as I'm trying to, hopefully you find this effective, I'm trying to communicate these things with you visually in this live chat. But it also can become a bit of a burden for everyone involved as well. So I don't know the data on this. The data will probably come in the next few months or so, or maybe even next year, looking back at the past 12 months as to whether video is more effective than phone calls. I don't know. I do not know. A lot of the time, I'd probably rather be on a phone call and it'd be more effective than a video call for most sales tasks. But if you're pitching and presenting, clearly video has its benefits. Do you know people who've made, this is the EEP23 again. Do you know people who have made the transition from sales to marketing? I know many people have made this transition. Going from sales to marketing puts you in a special place. Most marketers are artsy, fartsy individuals that did some nonsense degree at university and are too scared to sell, right? They want to be in the commercial space. They want to make decent money, but they don't want to carry a quota. And of course, that carries with it stress, anxiety, rejection, and everything else that goes along with it. So when you come at marketing from the opposite direction of being a previous quota carrying individual, you don't just create marketing content and collateral for the sake of it, right? You make stuff that actually works. You've got a better insight into the buyer's mind than someone who's never picked up the phone to a buyer and even interviewed them or asked them questions. So I know loads of people who've moved into marketing, and I enjoy marketing as well. Me, right now, if this all failed, I would probably be heading towards a VP of marketing role at a fast-growing tech startup versus a VP of sales at a said company. Multiple reasons, one of which is marketing is very soon going to own sales. Or there's going to be a new CRO role, Chief Revenue Officer, that's going to become more important over time. Everything's just going to go to this either marketing or CRO role head. And that's where I would want to be going with my career. If all of this fell apart tomorrow and I had to get a job, I don't know what would happen. That's where I'd be heading. I would probably not be heading towards a VP of sales role. So hopefully that is some context for you. Get rid of this. What else do we have? I'll answer a couple more and then I'll start wrapping things up. Herring asks, I love the Daniel Disney collaboration. You're really getting more out of him than he tends to get out of himself and his own content. It's killer. Who else would you like to collab with? Okay. So I've got room. This is top of mind at the moment. So if you like to see either me or Salesman.org as a company who produces all this content, right? If you want to see us collaborate with someone in the sales space, in the tech space, even in the marketing, I feel like we could put together some marketing content that could have value to both salespeople and marketers who are inclined to drive revenue as opposed to making arty-farty brand stuff. Let me know in the comments. I would appreciate any insights and thoughts on that. But yeah, I would work with Jeffrey Gittimer. Jeffrey Gittimer is a legend in the sales space, and I think we'd have a laugh together. We'd have to suss out some kind of intriguing, useful content as opposed to just me interviewing every week or something like that. But he's got a fountain of knowledge in all kinds of spaces, not just sales, small business, entrepreneurship as well. I think would be useful. I'd work with Grant Cardone. I think that would be an interesting pitch to give him of, hey, I won't take your BS. Grant Cardone's a legend. I like him. But I won't take his BS the same way that people within his organization do on his own content. And so there could be an interesting dynamic there of me spending time with him, learning from him, and you guys, Sales Nation, vicariously learning through me learning from him, right? But I also just wouldn't take some of the nonsense and the banter, or I would out-banter him, I'm sure, on plenty of occasions and not put up with some of the bullshit. So I think that would be an interesting dynamic as well. What I'm interested in is dynamics. I think me and Victor Antonio, for example, have a great dynamic. He's happy for me to give him some stick. He tries to give it back, but he's not quite as, how to put it, I think I'm a bit more of an arsehole than what he is when we're creating content. And I make him laugh at least once an episode. You can see him hands in head away from the microphone, probably thinking, who's this idiot I'm collaborating with? And so I think that leads to an interesting show for you guys, because one of my focuses, I appreciate this question, Harry. It's good to get this out and to vocalize it. I'm more interested in right now, I think we've got unlimited content, not just from salesman.org, but from everyone. Podcasts, interviews, sharing frameworks, how to sell, checklists, do this one thing and your email open rates will get better. There's unlimited of that. What there isn't very much of in the sales space, the sales training space, sales content space, is entertaining content. It's all really boring, especially from these big brands, right? I like Ryan over at Lead IQ. I think he does interesting and funny. He's a funny guy, right? They hired a stand-up comedian to help them with some of their content. And that shows in the format and the way that they do things. We need more of that in the sales space. And somebody is going to come along and start dominating hopefully it's us, but the podcast, the video side of things. Corporate Bro does a great job, but it's not, we didn't really do any, maybe he'd be a good collaborator. Maybe he can bring some of the silliness, daftness, and entertainment, and I can sneak a little bit of training or some extra value in there as well. Because he does a great job in building an incredible audience, but creating shareable, memeable content as well. I think that's the future of what we're doing here. I think if you're just aiming to collaborate with people who are smarter than yourself, it's going to be very difficult to get the word out there. Podcasts, which is what I care about really, it's a terrible platform, a terrible media for discoverability. You do a great video on YouTube, YouTube will reward you. More people watch this video, people watch it all the way through, people continue to watch more videos after that one video. The YouTube algorithm goes, okay, let's get rocking and rolling, let's share this to 5 million people and see what happens. On podcasts, you do the world's greatest podcast. The only way it spreads is when people share it. And who's sharing sales content unless it's to one of your colleagues or to a friend who's starting a business or just started in sales? It's difficult to get that shareability, that virality with what we're doing. So to answer your question, I would only really, and I've got a couple of ideas. I've got one that might be coming down the pipeline, a collaboration with a high profile guest or high profile co-host collaborator. But I've got room for one more this year, and it would be along the lines of Cardone, Gittimer, corporate bro. I think that'd be an interesting one now I've said it. Someone along those lines. Someone who can add just a bit of entertainment to some of this. Because, as I said, sales training, it's all very stagnant and just boring as heck. So hopefully someone with me in a collaborative kind of endeavor could add another layer to all this. And with that said, I think we'll wrap things up here. Let me just make sure there's nothing massive that I will need to cover that I'd feel bad for not covering. Yes, Thank says, you can't answer all the questions if you take so long to answer one question. I frigging can. I could be here for 12 hours straight answering these questions. I'm not going to. I could do. But yeah, well, I appreciate the feedback though. If you would like shorter, more succinct answers, you want less ramblings, if you want less diversions, drop a comment below. Do let me know. Drop me an email, will@salesman.org, or any of the kind of social media platforms that this content is going out on. If you want shorter, succinct, if you want this to be a training opportunity, if you want to ask me questions and I answer them and we go back and forth and it's direct, as opposed to what it is right now, Friday afternoon, Friday evening, chilling before I order takeaway and hang out with me missus and the dog, then we could go that way. I will create whatever content you guys want me to create. So again, leave me any questions, comments, any good questions that come up in the comments right now from this moment onwards. I will answer on next week's show. And with that, I'll speak with you next week on, I've lost what we're calling this now. It might just be Selling Made Simple Live. That might be what we're moving towards, as opposed to creating brand new content brands, because I'm losing track of all the shows that we do. So with that, I will speak with you next week. Hopefully you enjoyed this live chat. And have a great weekend, guys.